Today, what are we going to talk about? Throw in a word or two.
Trust.
Trust?
Resistance.
Resistance.
Celebration.
Okay, good. Trust.
Humor.
Humor. How do you spell humor?
H-U-M-O-U-R. We're correct because we're an older nation.
Yeah, but we kicked you guys out, so. We thought we like our language better. That's up. Beloved Roger, and thank you. Trust, humor, and humor's in a lot of what we do here anyway. And some people get confused by that, by the way, because we have this really deep experience, whether it's the music or talk, meditations, there's this depth. And all of a sudden there's this laughter and levity, and some people actually don't like that. They're actually almost angered by that. They think of it as irreverent. But that's because they're coming from an old school. You know, there's something, wrong with them, so to speak, in the sense that they don't know how to adapt to this other dimension. This dimension that says, lighten up. How are you going to ascend if you have all that weight that you carry? It doesn't mean there aren't times for us to mourn, times, just to be in a heavy space. But what we're being taught by Spirit is, don't live in that space. Have a moment, but don't live in heaviness. If you have to have a heavy moment, that's okay. But then what? Then lighten up. Always come back to lightening up. Find something that makes you feel alive again. There's something that's primitive in us that tends to, when shocked, when hurt, when traumatized, locks it in and becomes that trauma. That's not actually our destiny. You wouldn't wish that upon a dog or a cat that's been abused. Why would you let it happen to you? Lighten up. I had a daughter that moved in with me to be taken care of. She had some things going on, and I had her come and live here in Sedona for about a year. And she had these 3 dogs that she owned, and little dogs. And one of them was very damaged, and she just couldn't resist. She had to take it, and then rescue. And it had scars on it from abuses, and it just wouldn't do anything. It would just stay in this fear mode. And I thought, gosh, poor thing, but it's her dog, and I kind of left it be for the first many weeks that she was at my house. But then I just felt called to it. Eventually, I just started giving it a little time and a little attention. And it was amazing because there was this pond out in the front of the yard that I was living in, the house I was renting. And I just started taking the dogs, and I would go into the pond with them and wash them up because it was so hot. I would cool them off and, use the water and that, play with them. And even the one that was seemingly so damaged, the vet told her, it's irreparable. The dog is going to be like this till its end. It just has this shaking, and it just withdraws, and it can't come out. It won't because it's been abused. And I swear to you, it was a matter of weeks, and what a difference I saw. When you don't believe in that stuckness. Now, does that mean I started doing, slapstick comedy for the dog? It would not have agreed, but what it can interpret is being light. So it would be light, instead of, oh, there's that poor dog again. Hello, poor, pathetic, traumatized dog. Can I help you? You've just told it what it is. How are you going to help it? Instead, I'm not going to look at that part. I'm not going to let myself see that part, at least as much as I can. I'm going to see something else. So it's like all the other dogs. Hey, guys, how are you doing? Hi, guys, come on. We're going to get in the water. And the timidity and the water, and they're, freaking out. Pretty soon, I'm not going to pay attention to, it can't. I took it like the others, tossed it in the middle of the pond, got in the pond and said, come on. And they started paddling to me and digging it. And then pretty soon, when I go outside, they just walk over to the pond with me. It's like, this is what we're doing. Come on, I'll get in with you guys. Let's, toss them in the water, and they splash in, and then they paddle around. And, and my daughter one day couldn't believe it because she hadn't seen me do this much. And at one point, she saw I put them in the water and how they're paddling around and how they know, and I put a couple rocks to make sure they can get out. The care even touched her and meant something to her. And the dog changed completely. So this isn't a talk about animals per se, but there's an animal part of us that gets the same trauma and locks it in the same as an animal. Now, if that dog could get past its stuff of the past, how is it that we, who are supposed to be a more developed species, that we have higher thought processes and faculties, we even have an imaginative process, how is it that we can't get ourselves out of the past? Mainly because we don't want to. Sometimes we're afraid, sometimes we lack knowledge that it can even be done. So who's it going to be that's going to explain to people that there is hope? That there's hope, that there is a way. One word that was brought up was trust. People cannot trust the untrustworthy. They've already tried it and they're traumatized. So then they lock in this, okay, I tried trusting a couple times, it doesn't work out, it's scary, so I'm probably better off hanging out back here. Defenses up and kind of watching, scrutinizing that which comes my way. Now I'm not saying do the opposite. I'm not telling you just to leap out and trust in just anything. What happens is there are perks to the spiritual path in case you don't know that. We're not just reading and studying and meditating on the spiritual path just because it's interesting or because, it's kind of cool. My friends are doing it. I think I'll meditate because it's kind of fun or cool. That's not why we do it. We're supposed to be doing these things only because we trust that there are benefits. There are positive effects. I can have a different year next year than I had last year. If it's only going to be the same, why even trust at all? We have the ability to say, I know there's a chance. I know there's hope. Prosperity that I had before is not my fate permanent prosperity level. Health issues are not my fate permanent. And I'll talk about this more. I can feel that coming on, so we'll go there in a second. But if an animal can have hope and you see differences, how can we say it's not possible for us? We have everything we need to accomplish everything as long as we don't get attached to it looking the way we want it to look. Because that's not what it's going to do sometimes. And if we decide, hey God, listen, I would like a miracle and here's the box I want you to fit it in. So just make sure you suit me. That's like saying, give me a windfall of prosperity, gold, Lord, pour from the heavens, gold powder, gold dust. Wait, let me get a thimble to catch it. That makes no sense at all. Right? No sense at all. A thimble? That's it? We have to be able to open up. So the universe is not something that we think it is. It's not something that divvies out to us like we think it does. The universe pours, and it pours constantly. What we receive is determined by what we use to catch that pouring. Where is your consciousness? My consciousness is a thimble. Mine is a barrel. Mine is infinite. You get to decide. We actually get to decide. And that's why some people that aren't even very loving can seem to manifest more than others. Because even though they're not in a loving space, they believe that they can receive. And that's the objectivity of these laws. But that doesn't mean God says, well, that's what I want to happen, is that unloving people can go without. And, or go with, unloving people go with, and loving people go without. That's not God's intention. God's just saying, a lot of times the people you resent that seem to have more health than you, and they're not even nice people, more prosperity than you, that aren't even nice people. It's not that I want you to act like them, but do understand what they understand, which is you deserve. Because they're just saying, well, I believe I deserve. And you're going, gosh, I'm not like that. I'm humble. I don't think I deserve. But go ahead, God. Here's my thimble. Pour it up. And the other's like, yeah, baby. I don't even believe in God, but I believe that I deserve. And so, and God's like, I didn't give you a name you had to worship that only people under one name get to receive. It's believers. So, believe it or not, on a primitive level, spirituality could be called healing. Healing the wounds and the distrusts, moving into a place of love and trust and levity, for God's sakes, levity. And part of the process that we underestimate is that if we want to shift and heal, I've said it many times, but it's just the metaphor of a cup. Empty your cup so that it can be refilled. There's a two-part process. If I'm not healing or receiving guidance, I need to make sure I check in. Is there something I haven't emptied? Emptied means crying Empty means processing, journaling, vomiting, whatever you need to do to cleanse out the old. But that's only half of the actual healing miraculous process so far. What's the other half? Refilling. And people forget to refill. I keep crying about my past. I keep talking about, I keep journaling and counseling all about my past, but my life's not changing. Somebody forgot to tell them, reprogram. What I was doing with a simple dog, wasn't making it remember all its traumas, because some people and some animals won't know how to do that. But to the best of my ability, when I approach the animal, its stuff is already coming up. Do you understand what I just said? I don't have to say, listen, dog, I need you to remember who did what when. All I have to do is say, reach for it, and it's already re-traumatized, theoretically. I'm not traumatizing it, but you understand what I just said? As soon as you reach for it, it goes, meaning the whole past is already here. Now what are you going to do about it? You, the healer. You reach for it, it shakes, it freezes, you pick it up, and you reprogram it with something different than what happened before. You refill. Even putting it into the water looks like a traumatizing thing, but it's how I do it, how long I do it, what I do about it. Putting the rocks in for all the love and care is happening. It's not always while you look in the eyes of the dog or your client. It's all the intention deep inside that everybody can pick that up. Even people that aren't that spiritually evolved on even an animal level, the primitive part of their brain still is capable of picking up your intentions. So when you're there and you're holding sacred space in heart and soul, they're getting it. They don't always get it the way you hope and think, but they're getting it. And sometimes it takes a while, depending on how much trauma, depending on how much work you're doing, and don't forget, depending on your lessons. Because if you have some lessons about, I need to see that healing immediately, then the animal and spirit's going to say, let's drag this out a while on behalf of our great unconditional healer, who's actually got agendas and conditions. So we have to practice this refilling process. And one piece of the refilling that we haven't talked about a lot here, one piece of the refilling is gratitude. We have talked about that, but let's get that out of the way. Gratitude. So when you heal, for example, if the dog could speak, I reach for it, it's like, oh no, and then I do something different. There's something in the animal on a cellular level that goes what? Like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And do you know what it's saying energetically? Thank you. Thank you for not being mean to me. Thank you for being loving. You get that? If a dog knows that, we should know that. So the gratitude, the thank yous, the thank you for all that you are, the thank you for everything you've ever done or had done with you that ever was beautiful and loving. Give thanks for it. Never take it for granted. Never take anyone or anything for granted. We all slip a little bit, but do your best to not take things for granted. We all have the ability to say, man, I had this amazing day today. Well, no, there was that one issue. And we try to, and that's not the God in us doing that. That's the ego. I dated this person and it was 99% beautiful. But, there was this one thing that I couldn't get past. Well, it's okay for you to go, this one thing doesn't work for me. But what the ego does is it allows one bad apple to spoil the whole batch. It allows one unfortunate thing. Hey, listen, how was your life? Well, it would have been great, but, there was that one thing. So when you check in on the other side and they check in with you and how was it, and it doesn't matter how intense you are, how much conviction you have behind that little annoyance, they're going to say, are you serious? That's all you got out of that whole experience in life? Well, yeah, pretty much. Why? Well, I couldn't relax with all the cool things that could have been happening around me because I was tense about that one thing. And that is shared in the story of the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, one of the meanings of the story is God says, there's two trees in the Garden of Eden. Now, first God's telling Adam and Eve, listen, this is you he's talking to. God's saying, listen, all of you, John and Pamela and Diane over there and this person and that person, just letting all of you know everything and anything you could ever want is available to you in the garden. So here's the garden. You all enter the garden. Congratulations, enjoy yourselves. Wow, thank you, God. Oh, by the way, God says, there's this one tree that if I were you, I wouldn't advise eating from it because it's called the tree of judgment, the knowledge of good and evil. The tree of judgment. If you bite from that tree, it's going to make you start having opinions and judgments. So I would just recommend that you don't. So here's the part of the moral of the story. God says to you, every one of us in this room and on the planet throughout history, God says to us, you can have anything you ever want. I just wouldn't mess with this one tree. It's not healthy for you. And what do humans do? God, this is great. We get to... I wonder what that one tree is about. Well, it's probably not a good tree. So let's just... Wow, that, this is going to be a great life, as we look over at that one tree. And it happens in every conceivable way. There's times in my life, I lived I was fairly straight, clean, I didn't do a lot of naughty things. I didn't go crazy with a lot of drugs and alcohol, and I don't care if people do. I'm just saying I never was called to that much. But even not having done it, there have been times in my life where I've thought, I wonder what that would have been like if I'd have maybe fooled around a little more, if I'd have done this or that. I have the thought. It's a tree in the garden. You don't have to be feeling bad and judge yourself for noticing the tree. I wonder, what if? I don't dwell on it. And I literally, most of those things I don't go, what I miss? I needed to be drunk out of my mind. I don't have it, it's not like that extreme. But I'm just saying, which would have probably been really weird, but I'm just saying the thought can be in our minds to say the what if. And what if, we talked about this last week, so we won't go into it in detail, but what if is the most used axiom of the ego. If only. If only this, if only that. So that's that tree. Please remember this part of the talk. There's a tree in the mind that says no matter how good your life gets, always be distracted by that little thing over there. I wonder what if only I had married that one person. No, that would have still gone poorly, trust me. If only I had taken that other job. If only I had moved to that other town. I have a child or a loved one or a partner that took their lives. If only I had talked to them one more time. No, they would have probably done it anyway. Don't get down on yourself and don't obsess. You will try, but don't obsess on that tree of knowledge, the tree of judgment. See, biting into the tree of judgment is even causing me to judge myself that I could have, should have, etc. So, in part what I'm leading to is there's a part of us that has to learn how to say, I got it and thank you. There's also a part of us, and it's part of the thank you, but it's a second piece of refilling. Try this. That was the best ever. Mm-hmm. Wow. Now I don't mean make it up. I mean come out. Well, no, I don't want to say best ever. Why? Because something could go wrong. There you are again. Try it. Commit. Here's what I did. In my life, throughout all my years, holidays, Christmas and all that, not a really great, nice family, so holidays didn't go really well. If it wasn't one thing or it was another, my dad would ruin it for everybody. He loved doing that, ruining it for everybody. And I always had this, I love Christmas. And like an idiot, that's how I felt. I felt like an idiot. I kept, it's Christmas. I felt like the little dog on the Grinch, always, and then Dad would show up, the Grinch. So I felt kind of stupid because I kept seemingly being so naive, thinking this was going to be different from last Christmas, the last 15 Christmases. But it was always not going to go well. It was always something. And we'd have the family, all family, cousins, uncles, everybody come over. But every year there was less of them. Because this one, it was his long hair. He wouldn't allow this cousin over because he had long hair. Yeah, that was the 60s. And he just hated everybody, my dad. He hated everybody. So he always found something, and this wasn't allowed, and divorced women were not allowed. My dad would tell my mom, your friend's divorced, she's not allowed. She'd go, well, your friend's divorced, doesn't matter, those are men. Yeah. You like him too, huh? Yeah. That's the thought processes I grew up with. None of it made sense to me. Now, I'm out of that house and I'm married for several years, 10 years or so. And I noticed, at least in my contribution to the holidays, I noticed I was still waiting for a good Christmas. And it didn't happen. But you know why? I had a program that it can't happen. There is no program of what a good Christmas could be. I don't even know what it would look like. But it's going to happen, right? So I go in with the eyes wide open, but the eyes wide open is not necessarily God. Sometimes it's just ego naivete. So I'm going in, leading myself into another marriage, some of us, another job, some of us, and for me, another Christmas story. And even though we look like we're the innocents, and it should go really well, and if it doesn't, it's everybody else's fault, even the innocent, wide open eyes was still a broken self that didn't know, even if I had it, what it looked like. You following? And you getting your own version of that? So there I was. And then one day I had a different Christmas. It was, I'm no longer married, and I'm sure that I had nice Christmases, holidays of any kind with that family and with my children. I know that I did my best to create really cool things like that. But I did it structurally. It wasn't totally integrated and felt. Externally, I made sure my kids had gifts. And it was fun, but it was mostly an external action. You follow? I wasn't able yet to feel it because of my own unhealed wounds. And then a point came where one day, probably only 15 years ago or so, and I'm 40 by then, and so 40-ish, and so one day I stopped, friends visited, Christmas and this and that, I stopped and I went, this was the best Christmas I've ever had. And what that is called is commitment. I committed, but it might go badly in an hour, I don't care, it's already the best I've ever had. You see what I'm doing? I'm programming, but I'm not just programming something, I'm programming, thank you. Okay. People asking for us to cover other topics. So, what I'm doing is I'm programming by commitment. Ego will not let you commit because it keeps you broken. You see what I'm saying? It looks like it's trying to protect you. Honey, the ego says, I don't want you to be hurt again, so just smile on the holiday. My, this is wonderful. Oh, a gift. It wants you at best to fake it. It doesn't want anything real. So please remember and apply this one secret. Best ever. Don't say it when it's not true. But when it is true, commit and say it. This was fantastic. That kind of a thing. I remember one strange compliment we got once. A guy who he's like an internet, one of those internet geniuses, and he actually is a hacker, and he knows how to do all those things on the internet. He shows up here, and he one day announced, I want you to know this is what I do, and I'm a hacker and so forth. And he said, and I've been to various churches, and I go to participate, but I'm able to hack into everything and look at all their internet stuff and find the real people behind it. We're like, oh my God, what's this guy about, right? And he says, and I just want you to know I've checked you all out and you're clean, I'm staying. Okay, we'll put that on our business cards and brochures. But in part, it is still a compliment that he's saying, I found you guys to be that clean, and that's how scrutinizing I am. And then from his standpoint, it's a statement of hurt enough to not trust a lot of people because I've seen the games. And you guys aren't coming from that place. There's another level of compliment, not just for us, but for him. He committed, right? He's been, when he's in this town, he comes here as much as he can. But think about that. What can you commit to? I'm not asking you to commit to unhealthy things. But start owning that some things you have are great. Some experiences you have been great. Even if it's gone south somehow, still, what is the best partnership you've had? Well, I didn't really have a lot of great ones. But what's the best one? Well, this one, on a 0 to 10 scale, Michael, I would still only give it a 3. Then say, that so far has been the best one. The ego wants all of them to equal 0. When you say 3, it becomes the new floor. the new lowest level. Now you'll find you're able to create a 4 and a 5. If you keep allowing the ego to drop us down to 0, the heart, it gets deflated. God, I was trying, and this relationship, I just dropped all the way down again. I don't have it in me to start from scratch. Perfect. That's the ego. Perfect. Deflate you. And when you say, you know what? I'm going to call it what it is, and I'm going to look in my life and start assembling, is the next part of what I want to share. It's called assembling. From relationships. Instead of I tried this one out, didn't work, out. 0 now. I'm going to try that one out. Didn't work, gone. 0. What you want to learn to do is assemble a life. It's called assembling. You assemble a life. You start to say, well, this thing I really liked here. If I have lessons to learn, I'll look at those. This one didn't work, why? This one didn't work, why? But also, are there lessons I can learn? Great. But are there gifts? This one was very affectionate. This one, the affection wasn't there, but we had great conversation. Take that in, and you're assembling what healthiness looks like to you. And when you give this one credit and say thank you, this one credit and say thank you, I'm not saying thank you for abuses or hurts. I'm saying what you learned from abuses and hurts, but also what you gained from the experience. Like affection, or this person taught me about such and such. I remember a relationship I had maybe 5 years after marriage or something. And all it was someone that said that, because I thought, well, there's not really a chance of me dating or anything like that, because that's not my life. It's not my lifestyle. But I'm on the road. It can't really work. I already decided it can't work. I'm on the road all the time. I can't drag somebody around with me, but I can't leave them at home and be gone all the time. I did that in marriage. So how can I do this? And then I decided, wait. All I know, not what I'm going to do, all I do know is what is. What is that I'm on the road. So if somebody's out there that would like to date someone that's not always there, maybe that's out there. As soon as I got clear about that, I met somebody. And this person didn't become a life mate. What they became, because I'm assembling, after marriage, they became a friend, an intimate friend. It was now the first time in my life that I had an intimate friend. I had a wife and we were married as kids, and we struggled with life and trying to do stuff and get stuff to go on in our lives and raise kids. But I never even dated before I got married. I had not had that. So this dating was suddenly an assembling piece that I had missed. You follow what I'm saying? Now I assembled, I dated absolutely successfully. It was that, and I insisted. I said, if we spend time together, full on. It's got to be full on. I went conversation, honesty, everything, full on. They agreed, so we did it, and it was an absolutely perfect, successful experience. Well, it can't be, Michael, because it didn't last forever. It was. It lasted a perfect amount of time, and we conversed about it when it was done, instead of the little self-sabotaging that goes on, a game playing. When you know something's over and you got to sabotage it so that you have an excuse to end it. I wasn't going to do that, fully conscious. We ended the relationship, in fact, with an agreement that this is so amazing, it would be fantastic to continue it for years and years. And yet, we decided, despite how great it could be, it ends today. And it ends today because it's so perfect. But I'm not available to now take it to the next level of being present. And they were now ready for someone to be there more often. They were gun shy about relations, so they were like, I really don't want somebody that's there all the time. It was perfect. I'm like, that's me. So we did that perfectly, and now it was so perfect it was time to launch into a new level of something, and we both looked at each other. I said, but that's not me, my life, right? She said, I know. So we were done. And I still got phone calls from this person asking advice about the next relationships. I felt like Cyrano, Okay, here's what you tell them. Tell them this and tell them that, and okay, thank you. Then I'd get a call days later, It's like that. That's how perfect it can be. We can have life without regrets and resentments, but assemble it. One other analogy I'll share very quickly is I had a few people over recently, a couple of chaplains, and they came by and we sat. And it's funny because it was sort of described as though it was going to be a Christmas party of sorts, but it really wasn't. It ended up just being a meeting. So we sat and talked about unity and where we're going is what we really did. But we had this chat over at my house, and people are going, God, this is beautiful. I mean, guys, it's houses in Sedona, you know, believe it or not, those of you who are especially traveling through, you don't get that much. If you get a house, you don't get that much for 400 grand. You know, the houses here can be $500,000 to $1 million. The really, really nice ones. So it's not a house that's high end. It's only 2-bedroom. But everybody's going, wow, how did you do this? I assembled it. This couch set is a student who gave it to me about 10 to 15 years ago because it looks new. So the integrity I have inside, and you need to have inside, is keep your stuff nice. Clean, you know, keep your place clean, because that's part of the vibe of assembling a new life. Don't have a yucky relationship or house or conversation and expect a good life. It should be on the outside mirroring where we are inside. My house is not sterile, but it's clean. People, wow, look at all that. Well, that was left by my dad when he died. I got something out of that. So, sorry, Dad, if you're listening. Hosanna in the highest. He was a Catholic, so I'll say something Catholic so he likes me. Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Christo eleison, Christo eleison. Remember? Mass? So, it's there's a beauty to this world that we can't see because we're focused on the one tree. That's the bottom line. So we have to assemble. And people are at my house going, wow, you know, but guys, it's assembled. I mean, I don't have a ton of money or anything. And I don't spend a ton of money on anything because it doesn't make sense to me. You know, some people go, no, but that's prosperity. If you get this level of a car and this, it doesn't mean, I don't do that. I like color, I like beauty, and I don't have to spend a lot to have that. And people are going, wow, there's this table, dining room set I have, a hutch, very curvy, beautiful, ancient looking. It's all just so cool looking. And one of the first things they were like, wow, look at that dining room set. I said, yeah, here's how that came to be. I bought it years ago. It's about 15 years old. And I bought it where I can make payments on it. You know, $50 a month or whatever it is, $100 a month or whatever. So I bought it on credit. I bought it to get it like that. But there was a damaged piece. And the company says, we guarantee we're going to come out and repair it. Long story short, I never heard from them for months. They finally call, you know, they say, where's our money? I said, guys, we're supposed to come out and repair it and said to not make payments until you repaired it. They said, oh, that's right, we're sorry. We'll be out next month. They never showed up. They never showed up. 8 months down the road, I got a call from a credit company saying, you've been, you know, sent to us as credit, and we're going to, you know, ruin your credit because you haven't paid. I said, no. Told them the story, and they said, okay, we'll get back to you. I heard back from them weeks later, and they said, the furniture is yours. Because when they found out the company didn't come out, they just, for some reason, washed it. I never paid a dime for this gorgeous set. Universe can give you gorgeous partners, gorgeous furniture, gorgeous car. And I'm not talking about stuff. What I'm saying is it reflects our insides. So somebody can look at my place and go, wow, look at your yard. Everything, you know, in Arizona is desert. And it's all lush and green. Looks like England. How do you keep things from drying up? How do you keep everything from dying? It's very simple. I walked out and I had one large tree. The large tree equals shade. Water and shade allows a cool environment. So I have this lush green kind of a thing going on in my backyard. And people, how do you do it? It's imagination. It's intuition. And it's assembling. You know, I didn't just put it all in. Price-wise, I had to get a few plants every month, but I did it. A few plants and a few plants and a few. We assemble a life. You cannot steal heaven. On earth or in the sky, heaven. You can't steal heaven. You grow it in consciousness. So you don't, you know, I don't walk into my place and say, I'm going to go out and buy a $10,000 worth of furniture. That's not what I do. It's assembled because I didn't have, my life hasn't been like windfalls of money like that. It didn't happen like that. But a bit at a time. And the stuff is so clean and new, 15 years later, people still think it's all new. Because if you love yourself and you love your life, you also take care of your things. Some of this is maybe hard for some people to understand why we're talking about furniture. It's a principle. You don't just steal heaven. You don't just get heaven. You don't just become a yoga master without learning asanas over time. And the learning and developing isn't an intellectual, I now learned 30 positions in yoga. You still don't have anything till you've done them long enough to where your body suddenly is adapting to it. Now you are yoga, you're not doing yoga, you are. Feng shui. Oh, that picture's in the wrong place, and this, you could do it that way, but when you walk into a space and you become the feng shui, you can feel it. Something's off. Rather than in intellectual diagrams, you can feel it. But you're supposed to be able to do that in your relationships. Don't just try to fix it. Don't just try to, well, okay. Hi, beloved. Hi to you too, beloved. I'm feeling like I need to be heard today, because that's what the textbook said to say. I need to be heard. I'm not feeling heard. Man, like I would be done with you right then. I'm done. If you need to be heard, chances are I'll never hear you enough. Because you have a need, we're already sunk. You're already affirming that that thing's there, and as much as I would love to help you, I know that we're doomed. Now, if you can trust that you are heard, I'm there. How are we going to know that? Well, now we just have a conversation. Hey, how was the weather? You know, how you were out today? How was the weather? The weather was great. Wow, we just had a successful conversation, didn't we? I haven't had those, I might say, if I'm a person like that, you know. God, I haven't had a lot of those. Thank you. That was the best conversation I've ever had with someone. And I'm not saying take that too literally. That I hope I've had better ones than how's the weather. But what I'm saying is wherever you start, affirm that it's good. Affirm something about it that was good. And if it was only half good, affirm the half good so that you can have better. That's how I do it. It's assembling. You know, this alone could take a day of a workshop in techniques on learning to assemble, but just get the idea. Assembling. You know, for me, actually I commented about this when I was sitting with the chaplains, some of the chaplains. Some people say, wow, you know, I have some kind of cool things to wear. One time I was doing a conference, and I always wear kind of baggy, colorful things. Usually they're female blouses that people don't realize, but that's just what happened. I just think they're cuter stuff. Anyway. Anyway, if that didn't open up any weirdness, you know. The truth is, I'm at a conference, and Greg Braden was one of the speakers, and I showed up and I had this cool gowny kind of a coat-looking thing, but it's very gowny. It's actually called a goddess gown, but I'm just being honest, that's what it was called. So I had this goddess gown on. Anyway, and Greg Braden goes, God, Michael always gets to wear the cool stuff. You know, because Greg's got his black slacks, the belt, the tucked in shirt, you know. He's like, Michael always gets to wear the cool stuff. And the thing is, that thing I found like $10 in a used... It was a woman's used clothing store. But I was there because that friend that I talked about wanted to stop there, so we stopped, and I just happened to see that, and I thought, oh, that would look darling on me. But anyway, let's move on. So, goddess gown, Greg Braden's story, all this ties together, you know. But once upon a time, when I started more and more going on tour because marriage had ended, I'm going on tour more. I thought I'm going to get a couple of shirts that look kind of nice, and I didn't have those Eastern-looking ones that I usually wear, and I thought I'm going to get a couple of shirts. I got this bluish purplish one, and I got this one. This shirt that I'm wearing now is about 25 years old. Yeah, and it's still in decent shape. I actually did not know that women's shirts button on the opposite side. So for the longest time I was like, this is weird. And then one day somebody said, do you know that's a woman's blouse? And I'm like, but it's so darling, you know. Anyway, so it is what it is. But it's assembling. I didn't have shirts, guys, and I didn't have money. But I didn't have shirts, so when I had enough money and going on tour, I need some shirts, I found a shirt. Probably on sale. But I found a shirt. And I'm assembling. That's it. I don't have huge wardrobes at all. I've talked about that somewhere in the past, but I don't have huge wardrobes at all. My wardrobe is a couple pairs of pants, a dozen t-shirts, and then what I wear on Sunday. And somebody could look, if you only beamed in to my room and opened the closet, because I don't have stuff in drawers. All the drawers that I have are all empty and never had a single thing in any one of them. I swear to God. Everything's in my closet. And so you slide it open, some things hang, but some fold, and that's all I do. If you looked at that and didn't know who it was or the rest of the house, you'd go, man, this person doesn't have much. And that's how it looks, and I don't care, because it's me and it's perfectly me. I don't need a lot of anything. I don't need a lot of anything. But if you look more fully, you'll realize this looks like a person with everything. Because I've assembled, I have all that I could ever want. Somebody says, Michael, what would you like for Christmas? Michael, I don't know, I can't think of anything. It's best if you not get me anything, and people get frustrated. You know, to this day, well, cookie dough's up there, but, you know, my kids, you know, they kind of were frustrated, you know, all those years trying to think of Dad, what can we get Dad? I don't know. Honestly, I'm sorry, guys, I don't know, I said to them. I can't imagine if I wanted something, why I wouldn't get it. Well, because a lot of things cost money. Well, for me, I don't spend a lot of money on anything. It's the strangest thing. Please remember, we assemble our lives. Don't try to steal heaven as a relationship, a heavenly relationship. Don't try to steal heavenly jobs. Assemble them. Heal whatever is unhealed from the past. Bring in whatever you would like to recreate. Remember giving thanks for things you've learned, but assembling. Bringing in, and don't assemble. Don't wait for stealing heaven. Assemble it by starting with what I do have that's good. I've got a really nice shirt. You know, I think I would like to get another one of these. That kind of a thought. Wow, this really feels good. I think I'd get another one. I put in 2 plants in my yard. You know, I think I'll put 20 bucks into another plant next month, next week, or whatever. Assemble it. Don't keep waiting for it all just to happen or simultaneously to manifest. And people think that's what a prosperity story looks like, where everything just suddenly happens. That's not real. So if you go out to the parking lot out there and put in 1 inch of dirt and then go buy 1,000 plants and take them out of their pots and stand them in the dirt, you don't have a garden. It's all going to be dead in days, if not hours, because it's not real. So you have to give thanks. You've got to work it a little bit and try a plant here and try a plant there. That's not quite working. Let me move it over to here. Right? Just, you guys have been there. It's beautiful, isn't it? For a small, simple thing, right? Beautiful, isn't it? I mean, just assembled though. It can look like, wow, it's all been assembled. And that's how we can create a different life or co-create a different life. One person had asked about motivation, so I'll just close with this. If you don't feel inspired, you're likely not going to feel motivated. And therefore, if you're not motivated, you will not take action. Whether it's how to meditate or whether it's losing weight, it's all the same. If you don't actually believe in the benefits, you will not get the air enough in you, the air to lift you. It will not work. You have to actually believe in the benefits of where you're going. The perks. I'm ready to reassemble a new life. I don't know if I can commit to meditating. I try it, but I kind of lose the motivation. Then only do it for 2 minutes so that you don't do it for 2 hours and then wonder why it's not doing anything for you, because you're so distracted by all the time and effort you're putting in. It's too big of a goal compared to the effort. So instead, what I do is a little at a time, just like assembling. Try a couple minutes meditation at a time. Don't try to lose 20 pounds. If you weigh 137 pounds, what I would do is I would lose 2 and I would make 135 my new high. I will not go beyond 135, and if I do, it's time to exercise and fast or whatever. But 135 becomes my ceiling. And if by chance I lose another 6 pounds and I'm down below 130, 130 becomes my new ceiling. A day at a time, a moment at a time, and don't forget, this is fantastic. You lost those pounds, however many, 3, 7, whatever. This is the best I've felt for a long time. Give some excitement and enthusiasm to it, because that's a form of gratitude. Feel how good it is, so that your brain goes, instead of, yeah, well, but what's going to happen is come the holidays, you're just going to gain it back. That's what the ego mind does. You are in charge. So I'm closing with this. You're in charge. The world doesn't nurture this thought system. You're in charge. People killed Jesus because he knew and understood things they didn't know and understand, so they didn't like it. Because he believed in a different power. God is my source. They're like, we don't like that. You have to believe in that higher power and let it lead you into a new life. So we've got to get that motivation and know it's not running on empty. There's a reason why Krishna says, get on your chariot and ride. The 4 horses in front of him represents the 4 chakras below. Don't know if you know this, but in its original language, the name Adam and Eve, the name Adam, one letter in the name, A-D-A-N-M, from the original language was earth, water, fire, and air. It meant that mankind was made up of the 4 lower chakras that Krishna said, put reins on those things and you're in charge. Because the 5th element is ether, which is the upper 3 chakras combined. That is the presence of God. God needs to be in charge. I of myself can do nothing. If I keep trying to plant plants and buy shirts, it's going to be a love-hate relationship. A win and lose relationship. Only God knows how to create win-wins. How to create just the right assembling if we allow God to guide us. And don't look for the everything, a day at a time. Day at a time does not mean a thimble at a time, unless that's where your mind is at. So we reassemble and we realize the world doesn't nurture this. Those who are in the know are usually not loved or appreciated because it's different. But I have to allow God to be the guide. So I step into the chariot, and those 4 horses in front of me need to learn to follow the will of God through me. Today, the will of God says I deserve. That's what you guys are going to do. You're going to start mirroring to me, the 4 horses. You're going to mirror to me a life of deservability in earth, water, fire, and air. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, and intuitively. That's your job. Horses got it. They follow the leader. But there's got to be a leader. So we have to learn to step up. In the time of Solomon, the same thing happened. Solomon was this brilliant, one of the greatest beings ever. And he hires this master craftsman to build the Temple of Solomon. And the workers killed the master craftsman because he had knowledge they knew not of. And they were starting to say, tell us what you know. And he says, you have to be in the awareness to receive this kind of knowledge. No. And they kill him. Because this world doesn't like the idea of, you've got to be the consciousness of the things you would like to create. Stop expecting yourself to live little-minded and create great things. You can't steal heaven. So, be it Solomon, this means the Son of God. But it means the Son of God made active. It also comes from the word shalom. Salom, see? And so the name also means peace. Solomon was the one who manifested the consciousness of God in the form of wisdom, and it gave him all else. But even Solomon got distracted here and there in his years. So just because we get it together doesn't mean it holds forever on its own. We still have to step up and keep those horses right. Just because you saddle them up, just because you put the reins in their mouth and you get on the chariot and you say go, doesn't mean you can now let go of the reins and assume life's going to take off on its own. You still have to remain an active, responsible participant. We all do, obviously. So I pray this has made sense. The fire says so. Let's take a few centering breaths. A few centering breaths. And we'll go into a meditation. And the meditation will start with this little quote. The quote's not from King David, Solomon, Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa, Peace Pilgrim. The quote is as follows. I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way. I've seen all good people turn their heads each day, so satisfied I'm on my way. And what it means is, I see so-called spiritual people constantly losing focus and acting hypocritical and acting okay with that. So I'm out of here. I'm on my way. This is not the kind of people or life that works for me. Imagine that. I've seen all good people turn their heads. They get so distracted. And they turn their heads away from good deeds. They see people struggling. They see a needy person and they walk across the street to avoid him. And they're so satisfied with that kind of a life. Well, that's not for me, so I'm on my way. It means I'm moving on to a new life. Let it all drop away. That's not for me anymore. To learn and understand that all that I see is part of me. Like the song that says there's a little black spot on the sun today, and in the background the chorus says that's my soul up there. I see this out there, I see a brook, a stream, a river, I see a tree, I see famine, I see this, I see that. That's my soul out there. It's all reflecting me. I'm not good and they're bad. I'm not bad and they're good. Everything I see is a part of me. So I look to the world now and start looking as though you're the charioteer. You're leading this. And look into your life. Look for whatever you think you're longing for or haven't had. If you didn't have children or a happy family of children, healthy, then look. Have you not ever seen a family that looked healthy? And instead of coveting them, stop and say, they're me. Thank you, woman. Thank you, man. Thank you, family, for showing me what that looks like. It's beautiful. And now I'm going to breathe it in as though it's a part of my own soul. We have no separation. Thank you. The wealthy person. Fantastic, beautiful car you have. Great house. You dress so nice. And you can afford the finest perfumes, whatever. But you're me. Thank you. Take a moment now on your own. Assembling a life. Starting in this room. Assemble a life. If you've seen good speakers up on the stage talking, they're you. A good author is you. A good painter is you. Before the painter became a great painter, they saw some sort of painting that they loved and they started doing it. It wouldn't have done them any good, the painter, the musician, to go, wow, that's so amazing. Too bad I can never be that. They never would have become that. They all learned to say, all that I see is part of me. Spend a minute assembling a life. Assemble a house, guys. Who has a nice fence around their house? And see it for yourself. Not coveting. Just to breathe and love it. It's something for you too. Do they have nice foliage, trees? Is their house clean? Integrate it then. And if you're not going to go home and change a thing, then you're being hypocritical. So you're better off not loving anything than to say you love it, but not take righteous action. Don't live the hypocrisy. Step into it. Begin now assembling. See yourselves in that new life. But also, imagine everyone in this room holding a greater matrix of what they're assembling, a blueprint of what they're assembling. We're not living in lack anymore, living in littleness and trauma anymore. Imagine everyone in this room suddenly holding a greater matrix, blueprint. The one over there that didn't have this, they now have it in their blueprint. The one that thought they didn't have that, they have it in their blueprint. Imagine everyone in this room more fully awakened to the true self. I am the presence of God on earth. How could I not have everything? But not in the materialistic sense, in the gratitude sense. Health, peace, prosperity, love. I have an abundance of hugs, an abundance of love to share. Peace and joy. Assembling and assembling. And when I get into this state of assembling, it's impossible for the universe to not help me manifest that new life. If all I have is a beat up old bicycle, I suddenly manifest a new one. There's always a way if I hold it in consciousness. The new life, whether it's romantic or any other aspect of life, is mine, and it's here and it's now. And I give thanks. And so it is. Very slowly reacclimate. There's a lot of meanings to this phrase, a day at a time. A day at a time never was meant to be, just meager. A little at a time. It's all you can hope for. It's not what it means. It means kick butt, a day at a time. Go for it. Yes! It doesn't mean, just be grateful you woke up today. It means more, greater, expansion. Onwards and upwards. Okay? Thank you, guys.